Another similar example, but not using machine data, is to replicate data that you have in on-premise databases into your cloud data warehouse. And in this use case, I used Snowflake as an example of another warehouse, and we also used another database. So here we have two of the options that you can use to feed data into the warehouse. In the previous example, we saw that we used files and then uploaded files, and that is also what we have in the lower example here. So instead of getting machine data, we're now querying our local database for updates, and then those updates are stored in a local file. This time we use Parquet as the file format, which is a more compact format than CSV, but doesn't work that well with streaming data, since you have to write the whole file in one go. But here it works fine because we're getting all the updates in one request. So we're polling the database. Yeah, I said every minute here, but it can of course be anything. And then we store that data in a local Parquet file, which we then upload into a staging area, this time in AWS. And finally, we ingest this data into Snowflake as the last step. So this is similar to the previous example, but using data from a database. But another option, if you don't have that much data to upload and it's not that frequent updates, you can also use the SQL interfaces that are typically available on these data warehouses. So using that, they basically look like a SQL database. So you can use standard SQL statements to ingest data. But there are some drawbacks with that, and one is performance. The amount of data that you can upload is not as high as when using files. But if it's smaller amounts of data, then it's perfectly fine. And actually, for many use cases, I would say that it's adequate. So it's definitely doable. But the other issue is more related to the business model, since these warehouses typically charge for the time that you need, whatever they call it, their cluster or execution environment to be up and running. So if you're streaming small amounts of data constantly using this first example, then you need to have the cluster up and running all the time, which will drive costs. So you need to be aware of that. But if it's small amounts of data and not too frequent, then this first option is also useful and is actually a bit simpler than the other one, because you don't need these staging environments and intermediate files and so forth. So both options are available, and we've seen both of them among our customers. So it's really up to your specific use case to choose one of these two options.